Live.
Hey, we are live. We see this hangout is live. And so if you are watching us at home or wherever you are, I am Abiola Abrams, and welcome to the very first Sacred Bombshell Academy Google Hangout. Woo! And that lovely being that you see over here before you, that is Cherise Fisher, and tonight she is going to regale us with I want to say a powerful, actually, a very, very powerful series of lessons about living authentically. And from the moment that, let me just give you guys a quick background on, what this was supposed to be and what it has become. That from the moment that I knew that I wanted to launch this new book, the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love, from the moment that I knew that I was launching this book, I knew I wanted to do something different than a typical signing to birth this book into the world, because it is a guide about how to love yourself and what that means, what the principles are of self-love. And I knew when I wanted to do a live event with powerful women speaking immediately that Cherise Fisher had to be a part of this event, and that she had to be talking about the chapter authenticity, or authenticity within, its own, with her own story and her own experiences. I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio and read a little bit from the book, and then we're going to turn it over to Charisse. And I just want to tell you, I've known this woman since we were 12 years old.
Ooh, I didn't know that was going to come out, but okay, good.
Is it a secret? You don't want to claim?
No, it's not a secret for me. It's not a secret for me. It is a triumph for me. It's an absolute triumph.
It is a triumph. It is a triumph. And that you have been authentic since we were 12, which I think is pretty freaking hard for a 12-year-old to do, but there you go. So, all right, so let me tell you a bit about Charisse. All right, Charisse is a 20-year publishing professional, the owner of Scribe's Window, which is a consulting service, and as I said, she's going to be speaking on authenticity, the 7th principle and chapter in the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love. Now, Charisse began her career in publishing as the assistant to the editor-in-chief of Dell Publishing a month after graduating from Yale University. She later moved to Simon Schuster, where she built a strong list of commercial fiction and nonfiction titles covering a broad spectrum of topics, including Christianity and spirituality, relationships, health, fitness, pop culture, the African-American fiction, the gamut. She also spent 4 years as the editor-in-chief of Plume, where her extensive trade paperback experience shaped the success of Plume's publishing program. Plume is a trade paperback division of Penguin USA. Over the course of her career, she has shepherded several books to national bestseller status, with authors including Michael Bazin, Todd Wilbur, Michael Corbett, I may be mispronouncing his name, Nelson George, Paula Marshall, these names are incredible, George Lopez, Bill Wright, Farrah Gray, and Victoria Christopher Murray. This is my favorite part of her bio. Listen. It is Charisse's intention that all the books she helps bring into the world are relevant, enduring, and help readers maximize joy and productivity in their lives. Let's just have a moment with that before I even get to the book, Miss Charisse.
Yeah.
That intention is powerful.
Yeah, and you actually absolutely have to set your intention. I did a book called The Passion Test many years ago, and the authors of that book would always, before we even had a phone call, they would talk about, let's set our intention.
You're frozen on my side. Wait, are you?
Moving forward is setting that intention.
Yes, yes, it's so important. I think that, several times a day I say that, like, it's before you enter any new situation that you do have to take that moment and set your intention, or the situation or the day can run away with you.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we have so many distractions, and your intentions kind of stabilize you through whatever you're going to face. That is resistance. Your intention pushes forward. So of course, my intention tonight is to celebrate you, because you are doing amazing work. I mean, I'm so excited about being here. I am first and foremost so proud of you for all the work that you've done. It is amazing. It is necessary. And so being a book editor for the past 20 years, you know, a lot of my authors and now my clients would describe me as the midwife to their process. Just helped birth their baby. Launch your book into the world, the Sacred Bombshell Handbook, and that launch, being a part of that launch, which is a book which is absolutely one of your lasting gifts to the world. I'm just really excited for you, my sister, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh, Charisse, you're gonna make me start crying.
You know, both of us are gonna start crying, but we're not. We're not.
We're not. We're absolutely not. Oh my gosh. Okay.
We're not.
All right. And just
there's just, you know, for the public audience, there's a huge amount of history between Abiola and I. So if the feelings that we're having right now are absolutely authentic. Authentic.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I salute you, sis. I salute you. And actually, in the interest of authenticity, I'm going to just put myself on blast right now. In addition to like having tears, my computer is having a moment that I see. So I'm going to take a moment. So Charisse, actually, if we could go into your presentation and come back to this, because despite our test, something weird is happening.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, as long as people, yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk about authenticity, what it is, why it is one of the most powerful secrets of the bombshell, and how we can all harness that power for ourselves. You know, when Abiola invited me to have this conversation, I noticed some of the marketing material that she was putting out, and in it she described me as a teacher, which felt so generous to me, because I don't think of myself as a teacher. You know, what I understand myself to be is a seeker in this journey of life, and you know, and I'm consciously seeking to live my purpose. And when you are consciously living, you learn that nothing happens by chance. And so when Abiola asked me to talk about authenticity, the topic immediately resonated with me. Like Abiola said, I have a book development company, and it's called the Scribe's Window. And what we do is that we help both fiction and nonfiction writers express themselves more clearly, more honestly, and more powerfully. And we do that through developmental editing, through personal coaching, and through workshops. Components of authenticity are clarity. It is clarity. It is honesty. It's power. So, of course, the connection between what I do to earn a living and this conversation was immediate, right? Because I feel committed to doing that every day with my clients. But what I really thought about when she asked me to do this, because I know that we're talking to people who are creatives and we're talking to people who may not perceive themselves as creative, we're really talking about authenticity as it applies to everyday life. What I really thought about was my grandmother, who I had been thinking about a lot at that time. You know, in May, my mother's mother, whom we all call her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, we all call her Mama. In May, she turned 97 years old, and she is my authenticity icon. May I share a picture of her with you?
Yes, please do. Please do. While Charisse pulls up this picture, and thank you so much for jumping in and starting early with your presentation, which is right on time, I'm going to share with the audience that there is this photo. You're about to see this beautiful picture, but Charisse had this photo on her page, her Facebook page, of her grandmother, and her mother. And Charisse is raising two little girls, and just so seeing this group of formidable women that these two little baby girls, you know, are coming into, just made me feel so hopeful and proud for the world. And you know, we see and hear so much bad news, and just so seeing, wow, like, you know, these little girls being birthed into this circle of majesty was really profound, really profound, really profound.
Well, here she is.
Oh, this is your grandmother.
My grandmother. This is my grandmother. You know, Mary Ada Elizabeth Skerritt White is her name. And this picture was actually taken on her 89th birthday. She's now 97. You probably can't tell from this picture, but my grandmother was 6 feet tall in bare feet. You know, for most people, the memorable thing about that sentence is the fact that she was 6 feet tall, because not that many women are, especially women who were born on a small Caribbean island in 1918. But I want to talk about the other part of that sentence. Mama was 6 feet tall in bare feet. I don't spend as much time with her now as I'd like to. But I spent an enormous amount of time with her as a child. And the memories I have of her are as countless as they are cherished. But the lasting image will be of her standing in her bare feet. She was always bare feet. She was always barefoot. You see, the editor has to correct herself. She was always barefoot in her kitchen, in her garden, on her veranda. I mean, she owned shoes. But it seemed she was most comfortable when she was not wearing them. And now I can recognize how standing in bare feet, standing on bare feet, is a powerful manifestation of authenticity, right? You know, I have to add that my grandmother did not and does not. She does not have pretty feet. And I would bet that she has never in her life had any of her 10 toes painted a pretty shade of pink. I love you, Mama, but let's just be real, because we're talking about authenticity. Her feet were not particularly glamorous. Her feet were what she used to walk. But they were her feet. And I think authenticity starts with recognizing what you were given, recognizing what's yours, and having the courage to celebrate that. You know, each of us can think about what we cover up, you know, but it's that freedom to strip away the layers. It's that freedom to strip away the layers that brings us closer and closer and closer to our more authentic self.
Charisse, I have a quick question. I have a quick question, because people have been sending in questions for you, and I have a question from someone who wants to know more about authenticity, and along those lines with what you just said. I mean, that is incredibly powerful, but it also takes a lot of courage. One person's question was, if I suddenly become quote-unquote authentic, I might lose my friends. What now? A lot of other people were wondering if they would lose their career if suddenly they became authentic. Can you speak to that within your talk?
Yeah, I absolutely can. I mean, for the person who's afraid of losing their friends, I really question how she understands friendship. And I invite her to the opportunity to really connect with people in a real way. Authenticity is about more than being real. You know, realness is a surface idea. Authenticity is subterranean, right? It is about looking within and asking within and listening to the answers that emerge from what you ask yourself. And it is ultimately, and it takes courage, and it is scary. You know, when we are bare, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to pain. We're vulnerable to rejection, right? But what emerges is that purest sense of self. And for the person who is concerned about losing friends, somebody who is not connected to what you're really presenting, if you're presenting something to them that is artificial or what you think is safe, then they're not really connecting to you as a friend or as a lover or as a soulmate, you know, because you're covering up that soul. You're covering up the beautiful parts of yourself. So maybe you would lose friends, and I would say that those friends are worth being lost. I would actually say you never lose friends. You only see who can stand the test of time with you. But yeah, you might lose friends. On the flip side, and what is more likely, is that you would form some soul ties that are based on what's inside of you and who you essentially are. You know, I mean, the idea about losing a career. You know, human beings are magnificent actors, right? And we can, because of what has been poured on to us as children about what we should be and what we shouldn't be and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, we learn how to live under a bunch of layers, and we exist that way. But we can't always exist that way. We burst out of that. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
Out of that, you know, we eventually have to let the mask come down, and so you can fake only so long, and if you don't fake, if you have the courage enough to really be your truest self, then your possibilities are limitless. You know, what you're striving toward, what you find as your true purpose in life has the opportunity to emerge, and I just think that there's like an amazing opportunity in that.
Great answer.
Did I answer that question?
Yes, you did. No, you really did, because you know that when someone is, you know, faking the funk, as I call it, or having issues with being authentic, that you then have issues with intimacy within your friendships, or so people can only get so close, so they're not friends with you anyway, they're friends with a persona.
With a persona, with something. You sent your representative to be their friend, but you are so much better than your representative. You know, the opposite of authenticity is actually not fake. It's not something that is fake. I feel that it is something that is rootless, which is why, you know, part of it, standing on bare feet, is about the bareness of it and the courage to be stripped away and the courage to look at what it is that is yours and embrace it and love it as it is. But it's also about your feet, which are so grounding. You know, standing on your bare feet means that you're touching the ground. You know, when I would see my grandmother in bare feet, like I said, she was in her kitchen, she was in her garden, which meant she felt the coolness of the tiles in her kitchen, and she felt the freshness of grass blades through her toes. You know, she felt what she felt, and this is about her in a bigger sense too. My grandmother always felt what she felt. She could sit inside a feeling and connect to what was truly happening to her. That's another thing that we do that really compromises our authenticity. We push away feelings. We push away experiences because we're either afraid of them or because they're too painful. But our experiences combine to help us be, to help us stand, to help us be stronger and taller, right? So we can't be afraid of what our feet are touching. We can't be afraid of what we're touching. We need to get really grounded in what it is. You know, one of the things about my grandmother, she was humble as well as proud. She was a woman I'm not talking about her in past tense. She is right here, okay? At 97 years old, she's absolutely here. She would always tell me that I should listen before I speak, and she lived that, you know? She would be silent on a subject, and then she would hit you with some wisdom that you didn't even know you needed. And a lot of times the delivery was not like honey. The delivery for that was really tough, you know, but it's what you needed to hear because it's what she sat in. You know, my grandmother, devoutly Christian woman, had a very deep relationship with God, spent a lot of time in prayer. You know, here are the steps to authenticity. She spent a lot of time in prayer. She spent a lot of time fasting. In other words, I mean, literally fasting, not eating, going without eating for, days and days and days at a time. But, there's some things that we need to learn how to fast from in order to start listening to ourselves. Sometimes we need to fast from other people's negativity. Sometimes we need to fast from behaviors that are not life-enhancing. We need to take a fast from people. Sometimes we need to take a fast from television. Sometimes we need to take a fast from other people's opinions. All of these things are our guides to authenticity. And I think about a question. I think I was dealing with some level of brokenheartedness.
As one does. If one
does. And my grandmother said to me, you need to ask yourself a question. You need to ask yourself a question. She didn't tell me what the question was, Abiola. She didn't tell me what the question was, but she told me that I needed to ask myself a question. And I find myself returning to that all the time because there again, we're going within. We're going within. Authenticity is about seeking what the answer is from inside, finding that answer, living in that answer, standing in that answer, right?
That's so powerful, Charisse. I just want to just jump in and just point out that, one of the things that I find because I work one-on-one with women as a coach and then also give talks and that sort of thing, that people are looking for a mystical answer sometimes. And the things that you're talking about are so powerful and so practical and so real about just being grounded and standing within yourself and standing in your feelings and standing in who you are. And it's like that they, sometimes want some sort of like, well, no, don't tell me that. Tell me, some sort of magical thing to fix my life. But that's what your grandmother did for you. She said, you need to ask yourself a question, baby.
Ask yourself a question. Ask yourself a question. Figure out what the question is. Ask it of yourself. Spend time with asking it of yourself. I mean, like I said, I come back to that all the time. And for me, that is really the essential elements of authenticity. Just being able to assess a situation, figure out what the question is that I need to ask myself, and then spending that time to ask myself that question.
And that's so powerful, because it's kind of like, okay, if I knew the answer, what would it be? If I knew the answer, what would it be? So then let me ask you, Charisse, that, because as I said, we've known each other since we were 12, how did you process these lessons as a child to know how to be an authentic individual, and how did you bring that into your career? Because a lot of people are afraid of, just being authentic in the world because they think that they've somehow got to be someone other than themselves in order to be successful. You have been very successful, but you've always been yourself.
Yes. Well, okay, two things. One is that I think that I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so they're my greatest teachers. I think it's my grandmother, and then it's Lauren, and then it's Nina, and then it's my mom, and then it's Abiola. You know what I mean? In terms of the people who have taught me so much in life.
I don't know if Miss Diana wants to be so close to the bottom of that list. You really want to move Diana up a little bit.
I'm really into this book called Conscious Parenting right now. And it is about how your children are your greatest teachers. And so I was here to teach my mother. Of course, she has certainly taught me a lot. But I was going to say that having a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old has made me really clear that all children are authentic. That we're all born in authenticity. Aren't we born naked? Aren't we born with bare feet?
And barefoot, yes.
Yes. My father was actually a breech baby. He came out feet first.
Wow.
And so for them, that's even more powerful. But, children are born into the world naked, open, vulnerable, but extremely strong. Somebody told me when I was like a very new mother, who was it that told me this? Anyway, I can't remember, but whoever she is, It was a piece of truth that I have spread far and far and far and far. I tell every new mother this. She told me, she's like, they're not that easy to kill.
What does that mean?
It means, and it's true, they actually have little, like in the early minutes of their life, they have an ability to defend themselves. If they need something, if they're in trouble, they know how to scream their heads off. And so we're so concerned about this baby that is so fragile and so vulnerable to the dangers of the world, and that's true. But they were born with something that's like, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. We hear stories about the crackhead who put the baby in the dumpster.
Yeah, and the baby survives and is here to
survives, So I think that babies and I think that children are born into authenticity, and I think that the way that we raise children sometimes throws layers on top of them that is confusing and that obscures their authenticity. My blessing of life was to have the mother I have, the grandmother I have, who just affirmed what I was born into. They affirmed what I was born into. And so I was allowed to stay authentic, and I was allowed, and it was even more than allowed. Allowed is not the word. The word is I was encouraged to live in who I was, that it was okay, that it was actually fantastic who I was, that it was what they prayed for.
Oh, that's beautiful. Let's let that sit for a second.
You know what I mean? Like, it was I was exactly what God wanted me to be. And so...
And that's the lesson for you if you're watching this too, that, we think that we are broken, we think that we are our experiences, or we think that we are the things that, didn't work for us. And one of my personal, pet peeves is, when someone acts out and then people say, oh, they showed their true colors. And I'm like, no, our true colors are the best of us, our best moments, not our worst moments,
yes.
And so, yes, please continue.
Yeah, I mean, so the 12-year-old you met was someone who was allowed to thrive in who she was. Somebody, and I think if you read my my college essay, for my application for college, oh, look, you're so crystal clear now. Beautiful. Okay. If you read that, you would hear me talking about running around in Montserrat, which is the island where my family is from and where I spent most of my time with my grandmother. In that essay, I think that the first sentence is about me running. And I would pick peas off the tree, and I would pick mangoes off the tree, and the essay is about that. I need to find that because it would be fun to read. But I think that the 12-year-old that you met was somebody who was in a cocoon that protected her ability to be, and so that is how I arrived in authenticity. And then you get to a certain age where I think it's imprinted on you, and so this is how you understand how to move into the world. I would also say that I've been challenged in the areas of authenticity. I don't think.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, because that's one of the things that people always want to hear about, that they look at somebody like you and they say, well, she's beautiful, you're educated, what, you've maybe never had any issues, so of course you can go into the world right here right now. But people do think that, you know what I mean? People feel like that. They feel like, well, easy for her to say, she's a big-time editor-in-chief and she's got all of these other things going on, so, that's easy for her to say. Look, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's well-spoken, she's got all these things.
Yeah. But, thank you, Abiola, thank you for that. But you know what, I absolutely never always understood myself to be beautiful. One of the favorite stories I have I don't know if favorite is a word, but, one of the things that if I was to sit down and write a letter for my daughters, I would tell them about how much I hated my name when I was growing up.
Why'd you hate your name? You have the most beautiful melodic name.
I hated it because I grew up as a little brown girl in a town called Glen Rock, New Jersey. Shout out to Glen Rock. Shout out to Bergen County. Shout out to North Jersey. Shout out to the Garden State Mall. I mean, I grew up in this town.
And you integrated your school, right?
Say that again?
Integrated your school, I remember.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. I was the me and a few others were the first black children had gone to that particular school, because there were other black people in the town, maybe 3 or 4 other families in the town, but they lived on the cusp, on the edge of the town, and so they went to a school called Central. None of the black kids went to Coleman, and we were the first black family on our block, and so I went to Coleman, which is so, I mean, a lot of my elementary school teachers have this have a memory of me, and I'd like to think it's because I was so impactful. Maybe maybe I was, but part of an element of that was like, oh, this is a little black girl in our class, and so being a little black girl in the class whose mother worked, everybody else's mothers were at home. My mother went to work as well as my father, because that's how they did it, to be able to afford to live in the town that we lived in. Everybody's name was Jennifer and Andrea and Sarah. You know what I mean? They had those names. And so here I was looking very different from them, and here I was with a very different name. Now, my name's not Shaniqua. No offense to the Shaniquas. Love to the Shaniquas. Charisse is not what the stereotypical African American.
That's what I loved about your name. Like, let's talk about the elements of hating and fearing things about yourself that I felt like I love that you had a safe name, because I hated my name so much, and Abiola is okay, bust out the Kunta Kinte. I felt at 12 years old. I really, really did. I was like, oh my God.
Well, my name of choice, my secret name was Cindy.
Mine was Christina.
Yeah, so I mean, so talk about authenticity. Your name, right? Like what you call yourself. I wasn't even comfortable with what I was calling myself, but it persisted. It persisted, and I came to understand. I mean, who else could I be? I can't be named anything else in a less than brown world.
Right.
I'm a brown girl in a less than brown world, and so when I'm bringing in certain authors, I'm arguing for them. What I'm arguing really is at the time. I mean, you're talking about 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is not exactly the same. It's not exactly the case now. But 20 years ago, in publishing, African American books they didn't have a perception that there was an audience for them.
Mm.
And so you had to constantly fight and explain, and it was a corporate environment. And so there were some times when you had to put on the mask, But what I discovered while in that corporate environment was that the mask never sustains itself. It doesn't work long term. And that what is unique about you is something that if you stand in, I mean, when people hire you, they're hiring you. Well, actually, I believe that when somebody hires you, it's part of the universe's plan for you. And so the universe has created you in what you are, and when you're in that position, you have to live inside of your skin, because that honors the placement, that honors part of the destiny. If that makes sense. I'm very woo-woo today.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And just, to just show you just how on point you are and the memories that you were bringing up for me, I just was just thinking, because I'm seriously still on, how could she not like her name? She was the one with the safe name. That I remember us being at field day in 8th grade, and a guy who looked like Ralph Tresvant in New Edition sang to you My Cherie Moore. Because you said your name was Charisse.
Oh, I do remember that. Wait, that was a field day. Are you talking about when we had the coffee shop?
Where were we?
We had the coffee shop.
Oh, we were at the coffee shop. Okay, I'm thinking. I felt like we were.
I don't remember. Wait a minute.
Island or. But anyway, so yeah, so yeah, so it's just interesting. Also, just our perception of other people and us just never knowing, like even as adults, like you're in a corporate environment and you're presenting yourself as one thing and you think that everyone else has it together. You have no idea, what other people are experiencing. And so I want to ask a couple more of these questions because we have only 5 minutes left. That
oh my gosh, 5 minutes
left. Isn't that crazy? That one of the big ones that kept coming up is that people said, all right, these are specific writing-related questions that people had for you. The books I want to write are not a popular genre. Do I still have to be authentic?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I would say that you probably, Charisse, like, when you receive a manuscript that's not authentic to the writer, you probably can feel it a mile away, right? That kind of disconnect?
Well, first of all, yes, you absolutely, first of all, it's very difficult to write any book. Any book is difficult to write. You know. You know this, right?
Blood, sweat, tears.
You got to have the blood is on the page, the sweat, all of that. Anything is challenging to write. When it is not authentic to who you are, it's even more challenging. So I dare to believe that something that is not authentic to the writer doesn't actually get written. If it by some magic it gets written, it's not going to connect to another person. When I talk about author about characters and characterization, and you'll get some feedback maybe from an editor or publishing company that the characters did not feel real to them. What does that actually mean? It means that they didn't have their full flesh. They didn't have the wants and the needs and the imperfections and the insecurities and the pride and the Achilles heel. Real characters are authentic characters. They're characters that have the good and the bad, and they're standing in where they are at that moment, tackling with whatever choices are thrown their way by the story. It is, what is popular? Who knows what popular is? And are we work with authors who are seeking to make an impact. Making an impact and being popular are two different things.
And especially in this day and age. Go ahead. You froze a little bit on my side, but.
Again?
You froze up a little bit. Your picture went in and out a little bit, so I stepped on the end of what you were saying. I was saying that especially in this day and age, I think that you'll find your audience will find you. That we have a direct line to our audience, and so our audience will find us.
Absolutely. Based on what somebody had the courage to do for the first time.
Yes.
So. How I can tell you about all the books that were rejected by several hundred publishing companies or authors who are now famous who were rejected by agents who didn't get their foot in the door until the 30th or the 40th or the 50th. They're corporation. They live on a bottom line, and so they're not risk takers. So they know how to do what has already been done. And every once in a while, all the planets align, and something that should be pushed through resonates with a larger group of people, and that's what becomes popular. What is popular is simply what somebody had the courage to do, and any writer should challenge themselves to do something new and become the next popular thing.
Yes, we're going to have to leave it there, but That is no, but that is just so profound, like right there, like that. What is? Say that again. That's a tweetable moment. What is popular is what you had the courage to do. What someone had the courage to do.
Yeah, yeah. What is popular now is what somebody had the courage to do, and you should embrace the courage to do something new. And that something new is something you were gifted to give, and is authentic.
It is authentic. Beautiful, Cherise Fisher.
We could talk for like the next 50 hours about
I know, we really, really could. We really could. And maybe we'll do a course, because I've just learned so much on this publishing journey with this second book. Like, maybe we'll do an online course, coming up, like, in the future, to be able to, like, help people through, the process of writing, creativity, authenticity. That for me, that this book started out as something totally different. My intention was to write something, light and fun and whatever, and blah, 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 blah. And then this, sacred, spiritual, ancient wisdom book wanted to be born. And Charisse, like, it's so beautiful that you use the metaphor of midwifery. I talk about that a lot in the book, and use that actually a lot on my website, because my great-grandmother was a midwife in Guyana, and she gave birth to, help women give birth to babies, and I say I help women to give birth to themselves.
Woo!
Yes, that I say I'm the midwife for your bombshell life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what is next for you in Scribe's Window? Who are you? What kind of clients? People should get in contact with you, all of those things.
Well, there's a couple of things. I'll be really quick about it. You can go to www.thescribeswindow.com. My website is not public yet. It is just this close to being public.
Okay, good.
I mean, my date was Tuesday, because we were going to talk on Wednesday, so my date probably is still Tuesday, but you can go there and you can sign up to you'll be the first to know, and I'd love for you guys to do that. One thing in two things that are specifically coming up. I'm doing a master class on pitches. So the how you describe your book as the first step in creating a book, but also the step at the end in which you begin to sort of launch the book in the world. I'm doing a 2-part class with a colleague of mine named Allison Edelhertz, where we're going to workshop people's pitches, which is really exciting. That's happening on July 2nd and 3rd. That's coming up. And I'm also going to start an online writers group, critique group. I only accept 8 people into.
And so to apply, because you're freezing, to apply, should they, to apply for your writers group, should they?
So it's for people written, and they're willing. Go to the website and sign up, and you're going to hear about all of the. You can also go to my Facebook page, which is the Scribe's Window, and you can communicate with me directly there.
Okay,
did you hear
wonderful.
that?
I did. For those of you, if you missed what Charisse was saying, her company is called Scribe's Window. If you can't get in contact with her, contact me and I will send you her way. Or if you missed any of the last bit of what she was saying, that we had like a technology glitch. And so I'm going to close us out just with reading like a really quick paragraph from the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love, and then I invite you to join us in 17 minutes now for Dayanara Marte, where we are going to be talking about healing from trauma. So, the sacred feminine law of authenticity. The Sacred Bombshell knows that life loves her and her authentic uniqueness. She is not her persona, mask, or the story of how she has lived up to this point. She is inherently worthy and deserving of all good. The more she becomes herself, the greater the rewards. She is enough. She has full authority over her life. She claims her power by unapologetically being herself. This is sacred self-love. So thank you so much, Cherise Fisher. I adore you. I look forward to everything that is coming up next. And everyone, stay tuned for Dayanara Marte, and we will continue this conversation. Yay! Yay!